So welcome to another book review. Today's book, Sapiens by Yuval Harari, or Yuval Noah Harari, rather. This man is an Israeli historian. I know there's probably people going to be screaming at the camera right now, calling me a hypocrite because I'm quite pro-Palestinian, but I don't really believe in boycotting academics and boycotting people who write books, because that's the best way to learn from other people's perspectives and elevate your own views and sort of expand your own views. So I think that's very important. I do see why people boycott Israeli goods and Israeli products and stuff, but not so much academics and universities, because I think dialogue is very important. Anyway, this man has written a book. He's written a few books actually. This one is all about the history of the human race, of the human species specifically, all the way from the early archaic days of being primitive apes and primitive sort of cousins of apes, Neanderthals and such, all the way up to Homo sapiens, and how we went on to conquer the entire planet, top of the food chain, you know, most successful species on the planet kind of stuff, and how that came to pass. So he details different evolutionary stages, things he calls the cognitive revolution, the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and the scientific revolution, I believe, is the fourth one, and all that kind of stuff. And he talks about how we managed to sustain different types of different types of societies, large communities, whereas in chimpanzees, communities and societies can only reach a certain number, a certain peak level of members before they split and two societies are formed, basically. So what he's saying is, he details how we managed to do that, details how we managed to sustain that, how we managed to get people to believe in flags and nationalities and nations and religions, all this kind of stuff, and how the human brain was really the one that was responsible for that, and how the human brain evolved in such ways to be able to sustain those kind of things. He details how up to a certain point, chimps or early human beings couldn't lie. They couldn't tell a lie. They could tell you that they saw a deer down by the road, but they couldn't pretend that they saw a deer down by the road or something like that. And he says also how you could, we evolved slowly over time out of step with other animals. Other animals can communicate and they can say, look, there's a deer over there. But humans evolved the ability to speak and say, look, there's a deer over there down by the river, grazing at the grass, you know. And then languages evolved to be more sophisticated and more detailed, and that's one of the things that he mentions. And he goes on to say how we come up with this idea of common myths, and he says, makes it very clear these are not lies, these are common myths. So we come up with the idea of religions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. These are all common myths. And then he says about organisation. So Vauxhall, for instance, is a common myth. It's not a lie. It's something that the human brain has come up with, something that does not exist in the material sense. It exists only in the human mind. It says communism, capitalism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, things like Vauxhall and Dyson and all these kind of things. These things do not exist in the material, physical sense, but they exist in the human brain. And it's very, very interesting to read that. Now, he doesn't do a lot of source referencing, so it's largely kind of infotainment type thing, but it's very, very, very fun to read. Very fun to read. My wife and I enjoyed reading this very, very much. It was very fun to have a flick through and see how he details all the way from the early archaic humans and the Stardal Lion Man painting, and there it is there, that they discovered in the ancient caves of ancient humans, all the way through to agricultural humans who lived on farms, and peasants and kings and empires, excuse me, all the way on to different economic theories and how they came to pass, and how economics as a whole came to pass, because again, that's a very human thing. Some species in the animal kingdom trade commodities like carcasses of dead prey and stuff, but we're the first species to ever actually simplify that down, because that's how we started. But in this book he details how we're the first species to ever think about the the necessities of it and how it burdened us, because it's very inconvenient if you want to trade like 20 carcasses. It's very inconvenient to pile them up, transport them over here, bring the stuff back over here. So we don't have to trade, and we started stamping coins, and that's how economics and currency came into play. So basically, yeah, that's basically what the book is about. Very interesting to read through. The only downside is it doesn't have many reference points. He will just detail this is what happened, but he won't say according to this scholar or that scholar or this book or that book, etc. That's really the only thing I can say that let it down. And then in the final chapter of the book, he details what's coming. He details how we're moving forward, scientific bionics and cybernetics and all this kind of thing, how we're implanting chips in animals now, and we're getting bionic arms, and there's bionic arms now that can even start to feel the sensation of touch. You can even start to get that in bionic limbs now and stuff. And that's what his next book, Homo Deus, is dedicated to, where we're going. This is the history of where we've been. The next one, Homo Deus, is where we're going. And then the third book by this man is Sapiens, 21 Lessons to be Learned from the 21st Century. So if you haven't read this, if you've never heard of Yuval Noah Harari, go out, buy this book, have a flick through it. It's more of a leisurely book. It's not an academic book that will really make you think. There's nothing substantial in here that we didn't already sort of know already. It fleshes out a lot of stuff. Fleshes out quite a lot of bits, especially for me. It really fleshed out my knowledge of bionics, my knowledge of different economic theories, and my knowledge of how society evolved. It really did that for me. But again, there was nothing substantial in here that was groundbreaking for me. But it's very, very fun to read and a very, very interesting read. So go ahead, pick it up if you haven't bought it already, if you haven't got it, if you haven't read it. Give it a run through. Let me know what you think. Feel free. That was Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari.